We have finally got our hands on one of the hotly anticipated phones of this year. Hey, it's Josh Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And we invite you to see our first look at the OnePlus 2. At first glance and feel, the OnePlus 2 does bear some similarities to the OnePlus 1, mainly in its shape, but also somewhat in its size. After all, this is a 5.5-inch screen returning again, but the overall footprint of the OnePlus 2 is just a little bit smaller than that of the OnePlus 1, which makes handling that much better. However, looking on the front, you already have a very big change that's very noticeable on the bottom there, and that is a home button. Now, I say button, but it's not really a button because you can't necessarily press down on it. Instead, that is a small divot in the screen panel up front that is an area designated for a fingerprint reader. Now you basically just have to, even if the phone is off, put your finger there and it will read your fingerprint and turn on the phone and unlock it right away. However, because that whole area is also the home button, we do find that, well, if you don't really press it in just the right way, it could cause the home button to not necessarily work as reliably as you would want it to. But flanking it are back in recent apps buttons that are designated by just those little lines, a little bit different in terms of design for the button layout of the OnePlus 1, and the functions of the two buttons can be reversed if you want a left-handed or right-handed perspective. Moving around the metal frame, which again gives it a very solid feel, we'll find the full button layer on the right side, the power button underneath the volume rocker, and they feel very solid thus far in these units that we're testing out. The headphone jack is up top, and then when we get to the left side, we have a notification toggle. The notification toggle has 3 different positions and pretty much pertains to the way that Android currently provides notifications. Either you have all notifications coming in, no notifications at all coming in, aside from, of course, your alarms, and then priority notifications, which is the middle portion of that toggle. And really, it's a nice input to have that is different for an Android ecosystem, definitely something that we've been needing in Android, just a new type of input, especially for something like a silence toggle, which we think is quite useful. And if it's customizable in the future, it could provide a lot of new possibilities. Down on the bottom is the brand new port. The OnePlus 2 will be one of the first phones, if not the first phone, to provide USB Type-C as its port. Now, the cable that comes with the OnePlus 2 packaging has a reversible side, so you have the USB Type-C that can be put in either orientation, and the same thing goes for the other side where you would connect it to your charger or to your computer, for example. However, USB Type-C also provides another benefit in the case of the OnePlus 2 in that it only costs about $5. It's going to be sold at cost, which makes the OnePlus 2 cable for USB Type-C one of the easiest entry points into what will become the new standard for all smartphones, at least in the Android space. Now, we do find it just a little bit of a bummer that the screen is not of a Quad HD resolution, but we also think that's kind of understandable considering the price of the phone, which would kind of get bumped up if the resolution of the screen was really high. That being said, the full HD display on the OnePlus 2 does provide some nice viewing experiences. The viewing angles all seem pretty great, and in my opinion, it does seem a little bit brighter and has a little bit more saturation compared to the OnePlus 1. But really, it'll provide the kind of experience you would expect from a high-end smartphone, and really, we have no complaints thus far, and we'll have more when we get our review units. Which brings us to performance and the Snapdragon 810 backed by the Adreno 430 and 4GB of RAM, which is really great. However, the Snapdragon 810 is at version 2.1, which hopefully is going to alleviate some of the problems that Snapdragon 810 users had in other phones, mainly overheating issues, and we've been told that that has definitely been addressed in the OnePlus 2. On top of that, however, OnePlus has been saying that they've worked very closely with Qualcomm to make sure that their Oxygen OS is as optimized for the processor as possible, and thus far we've seen quite a bit of speed and smoothness from here, really no stutters whatsoever, the kind of performance you would really expect from a high-end smartphone, especially a flagship killer as it is called in the OnePlus 2. When it comes to hardware, there are a few new tropes with the OnePlus 1, one of the main ones being that this phone will be dual SIM everywhere. Now, we understand that in the West, it might be a concept that's lost on a lot of general users, but we do like dual SIM phones, and if you are a traveler, it's going to come in very handy for you when you're out in a place where you need to have another SIM card to be able to use mobile internet. And then when we go to the back, you'll see that this backing is removable, and style swap covers will be made available immediately at launch, and there are a number of different kinds. I have a separate video showing off the different style swap cover options, but rest assured that the cover on this OnePlus 2 is very easy to replace, and all of the different styles look quite nice, from bamboo to even Kevlar, and all of those you can see in a style swap comparison video that I have available here again at Android Authority. When it comes to the camera, we do like what we see, and we can't wait to really scrutinize the camera experience once we get our hands on review units. But with aperture f2.0, OIS, and laser-guided autofocus, there are quite a few features on this camera that hopefully will put it over the top when compared to a lot of other flagships. That being said, we do have some sample photos here, and this is not final software, so you can just sort of see what is in the pipeline for the OnePlus 2, but just rest assured that OnePlus has another version of the software that's going to be made available for the OnePlus 2 once the units go out and our review units are received. Really though, the camera interface is pretty easy to use, and the ability to do various options like a time-lapse and even 4K video recording are all available in the OnePlus 2 camera. So we are excited to really test it out once we get our hands on our unit, so make sure you stay tuned for that and any camera shootouts that will follow. And finally, in software, we have a return of Oxygen OS. This time we have Oxygen OS 2.0 based on Android Lollipop 5.1.1, so it is updated quite a bit, and Oxygen still retains the look of stock Android for the most part. It does provide a few extra features, but just looking through the interface right now, if you have used any stock Android devices or even other devices that have the stock-like look to it without too many other additions baked in, you pretty much know what to expect here. We do have some OnePlus-centric additions that were in Oxygen 1.0, like the button layout that can be changed to an on-screen navigation bar rather than using the actual capacitive keys on the bottom, and there is also the ability to add gestures so that if you have the phone off, you can do things like double tap to wake or draw a circle in order to open the camera. But those are all things that you've already seen on OnePlus devices before. What has been added in, of course, includes the fingerprint reader, but also the dark mode, which is a customization mode that allows the phone to be pretty much widely dark with only just white accented colors in order for you to be able to read it in dark situations, like for example if you're lying in bed. And then the other big main addition is the shelf. Now the shelf replaces what could be considered the Google Now page all the way to the left of your home screens. And essentially it is a nice looking couple of widgets. You'll get frequent apps in the middle there, as you can see, and they have all of the many apps that you would use. The ones that are used the most are going to be lined up in order, and then frequent contacts underneath that will populate based upon the people that you're calling and the people that you're texting. You can also put a little cover on the top there that will allow you to customize it, and then if you have this page open, you can get to your most used apps and contacts very easily. Now shelf might change in look, we're told, but really it's just a nice little widget that's been made into a full home screen on the side of the OnePlus 2's home screens. All in all, however, Oxygen 2.0 is really an incremental step forward. We do think that Oxygen 2.0 is going to need even more features in OTAs in the future in order to really differentiate itself from other versions of Android that are pretty much as stock as you can get, because that's what Oxygen still kind of feels like. And so there you have it for your first look at the OnePlus 2. Whether or not it is going to be the flagship killer of 2015 remains to be seen, and when we get our review unit, we will put it through all of its paces against all the other phones in the market. But thus far, there are some really compelling features on here, including some additions of input, including the fingerprint reader and that notification toggle that provide somewhat of a different experience that do differentiate the OnePlus 2 from the rest. The software may not do quite as much in that regard in differentiating itself, but really what we're looking for here is a solid experience at a low price, and that's exactly what you get here. For $385, you can get the 64GB version of this phone, and that is still a pretty good price for a phone that is not only unlocked outright, but takes dual SIMs and has all of that storage built in with all the power underneath. So stay tuned to Android Authority for even more about the OnePlus 2, and when we get our review units, we will be able to give you even more coverage and give you our full review once the time comes. So make sure you keep it tuned to Android Authority, because we are your source for all things Android.